Hello and welcome to the Holistic Psychiatrist Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Alice Lee, the Holistic Psychiatrist practicing in Lehi, Utah. Today, I want to introduce you to Helena Amos, who is a wonderful naturopath and acupuncturist. She practices as an acupuncturist here in the U.S., but before she came to the U.S., she was a physician who did a lot of functional medicine work. So the advantage of seeing her practice in Rockville, Maryland, is that she's going to bring all of that expertise into play as she works with her individual patients. So she earned a medical degree from Europe since 1986. She's been using a biomeridian scanner to assess patients' acupuncture meridians, which provides insights on the patient's functions in terms of their organs and systems, as well as hypersensitivity reactions to foods and environmental factors. She specializes in gastrointestinal problems, and she helps to heal underlying causes that may undermine its functions. She also works with patients in the field of anti-aging and uses microneedling and nanoneedling for facial rejuvenation. So I wanted to welcome Dr. Amos here. She's been very kind to spend some time discussing her practice and some of the things that she understands about mental health and its relationship to the body. So welcome, Dr. Amos, and I really appreciate your time today.
I'm very happy to be with you and explain to you what I'm doing in my practice. I'm combining acupuncture and functional medicine, and I found that to be the most helpful and it expedite the treatments very well. So I started interested in acupuncture when I was in medical school a long time ago. I've been in practice around maybe 30 years now. What happened is it was a course in our medical school of acupuncture. And it happened that I was late for acupuncture session. So they decided to have me as a guinea pig. So they tried a couple of points on my hands. And of course, before the treatment, I was like in a hurry. I was like anxious, nervous because I was late. And all of a sudden, I felt like shift of my energy. Everything shifted. Everything, I started to feel grounded and relaxed. It was a really amazing experience. After that, I started to be more interested in that and combining regular medicine, alternative medicine together with acupuncture.
Were you in your 20s at the time?
I was, yes, around maybe 22, 21, something like that. So a long, long time ago. Also, I started using less medicine and more acupuncture, which has been very helpful.
Yeah, it's interesting because what you're saying is what a lot of people need to hear, that when you change the energy, the body follows. And a lot of people don't realize that energy manages the information flow throughout the body. And so the body will listen to whatever the energy is telling it to do, as opposed to more of a Western approach where you're trying to change the body, but you don't know anything about energetics, the energetics of the body.
Yes, absolutely. It's very well known that different meridians related to different organs. So what meridians are, probably your listeners know that meridians are pathways of energy in the body. We all have an electromagnetic field which animates our body. So all those meridians or pathways of energy related to different organs. So whatever is happening on an energetic level, then, it happens first. And then secondly, any kind of physiological imbalance happens. I would say in terms of what I treat in terms of mental illness a lot is anxiety, depression, insomnia is a very big one as well.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this biomeridian scanner that helps you to assess patients' functions? Because a lot of people don't know very much about energy testing or biomeridian scanners, and it would be very helpful to hear your take and your expertise on the use of something like that in your work?
So I've been using biomeridian scanner for many, many years. I think around since '98, I believe. Of course, it's much more improved now and fast comparing to how it was before. What it is, it's EAV. EAV machine stands for Electroacupuncture by Voll, VOLL. And Voll is a scientist in Germany who actually started to use this machine first. And what it is, it's a machine which measures certain acupuncture points on your hand and the feet. So it's 10 points on each hand, 10 points on each foot. Those points are usually finger points and toe points. And it's very comfortable when we use this machine. But what it measures electrodermal response. So it's a conductivity response of certain acupuncture points. So we assume that all electromagnetic field of the body is pretty much supposed to be even. All major 12 meridians, there are 12 meridians, supposed to be even and balanced. So that electrodermal response can be different when some meridians are weak, for example. And for example, let's say somebody has asthma. Okay, so all of a sudden you measure lung points and it's weak. Okay, so it's kind of give us energetic hint that something going on with the lungs. Somebody has a lot of fear, nervousness, maybe tired after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You measure kidney meridians and it's a little bit off, a little bit weak. Well, we're thinking about adrenal gland, for example. So to give us some kind of idea what else to measure. Then you can measure it with functional medicine, more specific. You can measure adrenal function, you can measure neurotransmitters, as you know, measure a lot of different things.
Using blood tests and urine.
Using blood tests, yes, yes. And also it's good for the patients because they can see, you can print out and they can see it. And I always explain that it's just energetic response, so it's give us an idea. It also give me an idea how to balance all the meridians.
When you use those machines, I know that I've experienced them myself. Sometimes it can give readouts for infections, for example, like infections that it says that you may have issues with. And how does a machine like that know what infections would be going on for the body?
Well, we do not diagnose, but we can see how certain meridian, let's say meridian was balanced and I measure it and it's balanced. And all of a sudden, if I expose patient, let's say hold the vial of certain pathogen, okay, so and their meridian respond to that, meaning become weak, it gives me an idea that maybe there is something going on. Let's say it's Helicobacter. We all have Helicobacter, we all have Candida, but sometimes which is out of balance can create SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So, and if I see that there's an abnormal response to that particular frequency, then I would follow up maybe with a test for SIBO, like breath test, let's say. Plus, of course, I'm always looking for overall different clinical symptoms. So it's not only that, not only EAV test, but also what is going on overall in symptoms and complaints of the patient as well.
So what I'm noticing is that actually there are different types of machines, because I know that the naturopath that was using a machine that again checks the electrical activity of my body or whatever. She doesn't use a nosode, she doesn't use a homeopathic bottle, but the machine probably runs that electrical information through my body and tests for my reaction to that particular, I guess, energetic stimuli or something like that. So
Yeah, you can use both. You can use
yeah.
both. You can use something which is in a vial for patient to hold, or you can use it through the machine. Definitely.
The other thing that I wanted to ask you is, based upon my experience with these machines, and what this other naturopath was doing, she was able to use the machine to help with those particular conditions at the energy level. So if she notices that there's an infection with this or that, she might use the machine to kind of help me with a recovery process. Does the biomeridian scanner that you use also have that function, or it doesn't have that function?
Oh, it absolutely does that function.
Okay.
And again, I usually combine that with herbal treatments. So it depends on the patient. You
Mhm.
know, I like combination of different. It depends on the patient. Homeopathic, physiological homeopathy, like German style,
Mhm.
with just the machine. Yes, you can balance. You can have a patient. You can balance the patient with that,
Mhm.
with the frequencies.
Mhm.
But I found combination to be the most effective.
Well, it is interesting how much we can do at the energy level before we even go to, say, the use of nutritional supplements or herbals or a homeopathic remedy. But it's interesting because even though we call it mental illness, in terms of Western medicine, there's so much about these mental symptoms, whether it's anxiety, fear, insomnia, depression, that has nothing to do with just isolated brain organic chemistry going wrong. So much of it has to do with the rest of the body, the liver, the spleen, the kidneys, the adrenals. Can you help those who are listening understand a little bit more about that? Because I think in the West, at least Western medicine, it likes to think that everything that's mental illness is a neurotransmitter problem. And I feel like that's a very narrow way of thinking about mental illness.
Well, from acupuncture point of view and from energetic imbalances point of view, let's say somebody has a depression or anxiety. Okay, so there's so many different patterns how it can be, in what's involved. That's when scanner is helpful, and that's when skills of taking acupuncture pulses is very helpful. Let's say anxiety can be coming from kidney imbalances. So people who experience more fear, anxiety, let's say nervousness, unsettledness, they're tired in the afternoon. We're also looking at certain aura or hue, because that's what we train to see. Sound of the voice, a lot of different little tiny, of course, iris, a lot of different things we can see. Like, for example, okay, there's anxiety related to the kidney meridian, and we treat, let's say, kidney 3 on the ankle, for example, or upper kidney points on the upper chest. Okay, and we also help those patients to do acupressure on those points. Or somebody who has anxiety but has underlying frustration. They're frustrated all the time. Or they say anger. In Chinese medicine, anger is not like, oh, I'm so sorry. Anger is just like unsettledness, and it's more like, as I said, frustration than anger. So those people needs to be helped with the liver, because liver is all about that. These people have problems also to settle, to be more like grounded or making decisions. Okay, so that's also a big part of it. So there are a lot of different patterns, okay, so then we're looking at, for example, somebody who is ruminating all the time. They're like, okay, well, I'm so fearful, what something happened tomorrow, and they create a scenario about future, which probably never going to happen, but in their mind, so the rumination going on. And this is spleen or pancreas problems. It's actually a lot of those people have digestive system problems. And so, and those points involved points on the spleen meridian, points on the stomach meridian helps to move that sluggish energy on. So there's just examples of it.
And that is so wonderful that you can bring into play this wealth of kind of like holistic experience to bear on something simple as a simple symptom like depression or anxiety. It's true, these symptoms, even though they may look the same, like one depressed person might look the same as another depressed person, but they could be having those symptoms from completely different causes. And it's really helpful to have a clinician believe that depression has different causes. Whereas, my training as a regular psychiatrist is if you have depression, then it's always given an SSRI, which works on the serotonin system. And that's kind of a knee-jerk reaction to depression, as if everything that's depression has something to do with a selective serotonin reuptake pump. And that can't possibly be true. It has to be much more individualized, I think, in order to truly help the patient in the area that they're weak, right?
Every patient is unique. Every patient is unique, and every patient has, approach to treat them is very different. Some patients respond only to frequencies, as we talked about. Some people need combination, as I said, for digestion. Some people need, let's say, changing in their lifestyle. As simple as that, wake up early, maybe to be exposed to the light and go to bed certain time. The same with insomnia, for example. Insomnia can be so different. People come and say to psychiatrists, they say, oh, I can sleep, and you give certain medications, like universal medication, right? So in our case, people come and say, oh, I can sleep, and I ask them, I say, so is it easy for you to go to sleep and you're waking up, or you cannot go to sleep? Or if you wake up, what time do you wake up? And very often, a lot of, like more than half of my population of my patients say I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so it's like, why 3 o'clock in the morning? It's interesting because 12 major meridians, there are much more of them, but 12 major meridians has 2 hours window during the day and night time. And 3 o'clock in the morning is liver time. And it gives me right away an idea, okay, let me connect that insomnia that was going on a physiological level to this person. It's some people eat late at night and they eat heavy dinner and they have steak at 9 o'clock at night. So they're still processing. Sugar is a big one. Alcohol is a big one. Okay, so this is one type of insomnia, for example, and much more.
And that's interesting because if a person comes to you and they have insomnia and they're waking up at 3 a.m. and one of the things that you as a clinician want to do is to help them with liver and detoxification and the things that the liver does so that the liver doesn't get too stressed out at 3 o'clock in the morning, that would be fine. But if a patient was to come to you and they're on a lot of different medications and you're trying to help them with liver and detox, that's a whole different situation, because then you're going to be detoxing them in terms of medications as well, and they might notice withdrawal symptoms. So it makes it a little bit more complicated when a person comes in with medications, because the very core to healing sometimes requires detoxification and detoxification support. And if a person is on medication, then detoxification can lead to problematic symptoms from withdrawal.
That's very true. And how I do detoxification is a stop and go detoxification for those patients. Why? Because and a lot of people come to me with a case of supplements. So many supplements they bring and say, oh, I have this, and said, wait a minute, let's stop and see what's going on. That's another use of biomeridian machine, because when they come and they're toxic, I do it step by step. So I never do all, like, let's say, not detoxify them right away, all organs. I see what is now appropriate for them. So I can give them just the lymph system detoxification with acupuncture and with frequencies. I use people who have a lot of medication. I use a lot of homeopathics and frequencies, because they already taking so much of other medications, and it's very difficult to do it with herbs, for example. So I use very gentle approach to that. And I would say for those patients, acupuncture probably will be the best for detoxification, and, as I said, frequency and homeopathics. So I'll do the lymph system, for example, and then I will recheck them second time and see how they respond to that. If I see very strong response detoxification, I would stop and just balance them. So it's stop and go, very gentle detoxification for those patients.
Yeah, that's wisdom, I think, when it comes to clinical interventions. It's not throw the kitchen sink at the patient, but it's more about step-by-step, gentle approaches, which I totally agree with. I also was thinking, as you're talking about the whole thing about step-by-step, maybe you can explain a little bit about the difference between homeopathics and what they do, because it's my understanding with homeopathics is that there are different ways in which homeopathy works. But one of the general ideas that I have about homeopathy is that by taking the homeopathic, it's stimulating the body to do something in response to the stimuli, whatever the stimuli is. Whereas, let's talk about Bach flower remedies, which is also kind of homeopathic. It uses energy, but with the Bach flower remedies, I think of it as adding energy that supports the overall energies of the body. So maybe I may be wrong, but can you help me understand the differences in which these two homeopathic remedies work? How do they work?
There are different types of homeopathic approaches. There's a classical homeopathy, which treats similar with similar. Okay, for example, somebody has in the past Epstein-Barr syndrome. I mean, they have Epstein-Barr syndrome. I mean, you can't get rid of virus, but what you can do, you can move virus in a more dormant state. In this case, what you do, you use so-called nosodes. And what it is, it's approach treats similar with similar. It's only frequency of that particular virus. So it's a kind of very gentle exposure and kind of saying to immune system, okay, well, this is a pathogen you had before, but deal with that and be active and not allow those symptoms to show up. So it's one approach. Okay, so another approach is just physiological homeopathy, like German style. This is more, and this is very good to use for gentle detoxification, but again, very careful with people on a lot of pharmaceuticals, but for general population, it's very good. So that approach is similar to Bach approach. It's something homeopathic, but what allows to increase circulation in organs. Let's say circulation in the lymph system to flush it, circulation in the kidneys to flush it, circulation in small intestine to get rid of toxicity or open up bile ducts. This kind of, so when I look at all the meridians on the chart for the patient, I see, okay, that patient is ready for next step. And so because I know that, let's say lymph system is better, now I can go and take care of organs of elimination to then to allow liver to be detoxed next. So that's how I do that. So so this, they also call it homeopathic remedies because it's only frequency of it, but approach is a little bit different, depends.
Well, I think that we also need to understand that even though it's just working with energies, it can be very powerful and very potent. I've had some patients, for example, where I would just work on them, let's say using some energetic approaches that I learned from my Reiki training, and they would start to get better. And so I would start to use a classic homeopathic remedy for Epstein-Barr, for example, that is meant to decrease the Epstein-Barr virus in their body. And I noticed that they would have like a healing crisis, let's just say, but it's actually a Herxheimer reaction. I think of it as the immune system being stimulated to the Epstein-Barr and then activating that protective response against the virus and maybe possibly getting some die-off from that. And patients can actually regress because of the increased oxidative stress and inflammation from the die-off of the Epstein-Barr. So you have to be very careful with these homeopathics because they can cause a lot of shifts biologically in the body.
It's totally true. And that's why before you detox or use any of nosodes or anything for pathogens, you make sure that you stabilize the patient first. I never use any of this until I stabilize, make sure that all the meridians are good. And if they are toxic, you don't do that. You don't start using any viral or any bacterial nosodes. It's too early. And again, stop and go approach is the best.
Giving your body time to clear out things.
Exactly. The same with heavy metals, as we know. The same with, people sometimes come to me and they are very, very, it's like, oh my God, I cannot get rid of it. The minute I started getting rid of it, I'm so sick, stabilizing for several weeks. After that, 1 day, 2 days, very tiny bit, see the response. Right. And it's sometimes even not taking anything, but maybe holding. Like an hour or so, holding the vial and do acupressure points. There are certain acupressure points called bioset points I use for that. So that's another way of doing it as well.
Well, since I work with a lot of patients who are coming to me for medication withdrawal issues, I wanted to ask you how you assess and approach patients who are coming off psychiatric medications, and what kind of tools you use to support them.
I usually, again, so when they come, I usually take all the information and on each level, mental, emotional, physical level. And I start very simple. I usually start with acupuncture. Because acupuncture is amazing for that. It's just sometimes 1 or 2 treatments, you have such a huge difference, it's amazing. So I start very simple first, and I treat layers of energy because our energy has layers, superficial layer, there's certain points for that, and then deeper and deeper, okay, to the point of treating cellular memory, to clear cellular memory response to, so this is number 1. now, if they're having medication withdrawal, again, detoxification with acupuncture first, and then I do it by organ. Simple by organ. Depends what kind of medication, how it metabolizes in the body. There's also, approach when it's if you have that medication in homeopathic form, and then use certain acupressure points to desensitize the body for that. So that's another approach can be used for that.
Well, I wanted to ask if you wanted to share some clinical vignettes, some stories of some patients that you've worked with who've had depression or anxiety or ADD, and just share what happened to them as they came to you for treatment, so people can get a sense of how healing can happen for these individuals.
So one patient came and she had a lot of pain and aches. She didn't even say she had anxiety or depression, just like, oh my God, my body aches so much. I have a headache. I just like can sleep. So just I'm a mess. So it's like and she came to me like on emergency. It's like, I don't know. She was not even in my schedule. I said, okay, come over. I'll have time for you to do acupuncture. So I started very simple. I did so-called 4 gates. I don't know if your listeners know what 4 gates are. It's a certain points in the body, and actually it's good to teach everybody to do acupressure on those points, because they're kind of universal for a lot of people. Top of the head, then in the web between index and thumb, and in the web between first and second toe. So 5 points. I came in the room, it's totally different person. It was amazing. Pain and aches went away.
Wow.
And it was following up one more session, and it was gone. So I see this patient once in a while. Of course, it was unfolding after that. The patient had a lot of candida and sugar addiction, and so it was connected to her digestive system problems too. But I was able, without any medications, to really settle down everything. Okay, so that was one example. Asthma patient. Very often with asthma, people have fear. Tremendous fear, they cannot breathe deeply, so, and it's just very, very unsettled with it. So yes, you treat them to help them to breathe. At the same time, the minute you settle down their fear, and doing some kidney points, supporting kidneys, supporting adrenal gland, their asthma usually resolved by itself. So very often that, of course, I always check for allergens and things like that, put them on the right diet. So it's all combination usually.
Can I ask you about the adrenals? Because when you say support the adrenals, I know that with acupuncture, you can do that gently. I find that naturopaths who use adrenal glands can just cause more anxiety, because the adrenal glandular releases more potential for adrenaline to go through the body. So is there any functional supports that you use for the adrenals that would be calming but supportive to the adrenals?
Okay, you're absolutely right. So there are several approaches to how to support adrenal gland. Acupuncture is the most gentle. Then you can use adrenal homeopathic. And then I use adaptogen herbs. Okay, so there are 12 major adaptogens herbs, like ashwagandha, ginseng, and others. So again, depends on the patient. That's another approach. And sometimes if it's really very fragile patient, I just go start very simple and check their B complex.
Mhm.
and see if it has a sufficient amount, like micronutrient test, for example, what is missing there. So that kind of approach I can also use. Again, it all depends on the patient.
One of the things that I found quite helpful to get around this problem with feeling wired but tired, a lot of times, they feel kind of anxious, but then they're also fatigued, is to support their body with supplements that support the mitochondria and ATP production. It seems to be a way to help them with recovery, kind of like what people are trying to do with coffee, but without any of the, side effects for creating more anxiety and more insomnia and things like that. Have you found that to be helpful?
Yeah, ATP definitely. I've been using it for many years as well. Yeah,
Mm.
it's when I do B complex, I also give ATP mitochondrial support. Mitochondria resuscitate. I think Metagenics makes it. It's very good.
Some of the things that I've used is liposomal CoQ10 plus PQQ, which feeds the mitochondria, and the CoQ10 is very helpful, as well as NAD plus, which is also very helpful for just the whole mitochondrial complex. Well, we're almost out of time. I just want to thank you so much for your expertise and for your wisdom. I think that you brought up some really good points with regard to healing mental health issues, and that is that a lot of times mental health, for example, can be linked to physical problems like asthma or aches and pains, inflammation, and that the two are interconnected. The second thing that you emphasized, I think, is very important, is that being gentle and not trying to kind of do too much at once, allowing the body time to heal is important. And the third thing that I find really helpful for you to emphasize is that it's important for the clinician to understand that every patient is unique and they come in with all different types of underlying causes. And as holistic clinicians, it's really important for us to explore those underlying causes rather than giving them a one-size-fits-all kind of prescription medication, right? Even if they do feel better, it's not really treating the underlying causes. And those underlying causes, if they're not treated, they can get worse. So
True, very true.
yeah. Is there any last bits of advice that you want to leave before we finish up our recording?
Be open to new approaches, see a practitioner, interview them first. If you feel more comfortable, feel connected to them. It's very important. Trust is very important. So if you trust practitioner, try new things. Again, gentle approach, and I think you will find, be open to new knowledge about everything.
I think that's important, because when you're open, then you allow the energy to do what it's supposed to. If you resist it, I think it really prevents the energetics to work properly. So I just want to really thank you, Helena, Dr. Amos, for coming to this interview, for sharing your wisdom. And for those people who have listened to our recording, I want to thank you for being present, for being open to this additional information. If you liked what you've heard, please subscribe to this weekly podcast for more amazing information, and give a positive rating to help spread the message. Subscribe to my website, holisticspsychiatrist.com, for more wonderful stories and insights from my holistic practice, and where you'll find links to all my social media platforms. And with regard to Dr. Amos, if you want to see her website is called rockvillacupuncturemd.com, and her office number is 301-881-2898. Again, to reach Dr. Amos, you can find her at rockvillacupuncturemd.com. 301-881-2898. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you, Dr. Amos, for being present. And I hope you all have a great week, and I hope that you'll listen to our next podcast when it comes out. Thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye.